Hello and good morning, friends. That's if you're listening in the morning. If not, good afternoon or good evening. Welcome to the Zen Disc Golf Podcast. This is episode number 28, and on this episode, I got a chance to sit down one-on-one and talk disc golf with Mr. Mind Body Disc himself, Tim Steward. We gave Chris the month off, but he will be back. I really enjoyed this episode, though, and Tim and I got a chance to sit down and answer some online questions and review some of our new favorite disc golf related items. I do want to make a pre-episode correction. Later in the episode, I refer to a West Side King, and I really meant a West Side Giant. Just throwing that out there before my inbox fills in with angry Trilogy members. Today's podcast is brought to you by some of our amazing and generous podcast contributors: Jeremy Ziakis in Kentucky, Melissa Martin, Ohio, Royal Daniel in Texas, Todd Sisko in Kansas, and Timmy Anderson all the way out in Sweden. This podcast is funded purely on monthly $1 donations from listeners like you. If you would like to hear your name mentioned here and be one of the coolest kids on the block, support a show you love, please click the PayPal donation links either in the show notes or on the right side of zendiscgolf.com. As a reward, every month, all sponsors are entered into a monthly drawing for $20 gift card to our favorite online disc golf store, InfiniteDiscs.com. Now let's do a disc golf podcast. So good morning, Tim. How are you?
Awesome, Pat. How you doing today?
I'm doing just peachy keen. So I've played about 10 or 15 rounds since the last time we talked. By the way, it's been a long time no speak. I've missed you, buddy.
Yeah, no kidding, man. It has been a while since we've done this. I have not played as much disc golf as you have, though, unfortunately.
So how about that Steve Dodge interview on the last podcast?
That was great, man. I really enjoyed that. He seems like a really cool guy. One of those people that you hear him and you go, man, I want to hang out with that guy for a day.
Yeah,
or play around with him, especially.
Awesome. He exemplifies what we talk about on the podcast all the time. But he's got a great sense of humor too. I don't know if you've ever watched any of his YouTube videos or interviews.
Yeah, his video blog is pretty hysterical. With a little piece of paper he puts up on the board. Yeah,
he's a wild and zany kind of dude. So yesterday I actually played 36 holes, and actually it's kind of stupid for me to do that because the day before I was working at the fire station, and sometimes if we don't get around to doing our PT, we're required to do an hour of PT a day. If calls or just different things happen during the day, we just don't get around to it. So about 8 o'clock at night, I said, you know what? I'm going to put myself down for an hour of PT, and I'm just going to go out and throw a bunch of putters. So I went out in the field next to the fire station, and I grabbed a couple of AVRs, and I had just watched one of the distance driving videos from Mr. Simon Lizotte. And so I was trying out a couple new things and just really trying to throw these putters. Well, it didn't cause me any discomfort. But you know how if you change your form at all and your body's really not ready for it and you do it over and over and over and over again?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the next day we go out with a couple buddies of mine out to the Newport News disc golf course. And I'm noticing like on the first 3 or 4 holes, I'm just throwing really low. And I can't get the disc up and I don't know what's exactly is going on. And I'm like, you know what? I think my shoulder's starting to be, it's showing some fatigue. And then like around hole number 5, I'm like, okay, that fatigue has turned into discomfort. And around like, hole number 12, 13, it's starting to turn into pain. And somebody goes, hey, you want to play another 18? Of course I do. By the end of the round yesterday, I was standing, I think at the 18th hole, we were doing scotch doubles. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
It's something that, I just read about the other day and I wanted to try yesterday. It's really kind of a blast. Usually when we play doubles out on the course, we play best shot. Is that what you do?
Okay. Yeah.
So Scotch doubles, as far as I know from what I remember reading, instead of best shot, it's two teams or however many teams you have alternating shot. So the first person will throw off the tee, the next person does the upshot, the next person does the putt. If you make the putt, then the next person shoots off the next tee.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, throughout the whole course, you alternate shots. So, so we wanted to try that, and by the end of the day, on hole number 18, my partner had set me up for like a 4-foot putt, and I couldn't raise my arm high enough to even get it up to the basket. I'm like, oh, this is bad. And like, I was having to lean over my disc to grab it, and I was having to grab my elbow and hold it close to my body.
That's so good. It sounds like some actual scotch might have helped that round.
Yeah, absolutely. They were like, well, you wanted to do another 18. Was it me? I thought somebody else wanted to do another 18.
Yeah, that's a lesson for all the younger folks out there listening. God, I sound like an old man. All you whippersnappers out there listening to this podcast. All the younger people out there who can play and they're listening to you right now going, what the heck is this guy talking about? He played 36 rounds and he can't bend over. You know what? I remember a time when I could do that too. I'd go out, head out at sun up and play till sundown, and I'd be fine and get up and do it again the next day. Everybody out there who can still do that, enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah. The most holes I ever played in one day, I believe, if I can remember the number right, is like 114 holes.
Yowza.
And we did it up at the Block House, which is a pretty big to do disc golf course here in Virginia and Fredericksburg. And I'm talking, these are big courses, but we were camping there. Me and my buddy were camping there for the weekend, and you know, when you go up there to camp, you want to play. And that's all we did, you know. Yeah. And so I will say a good number of those holes were par 2 course, because they have a little tiki course
cool.
there at the Block House. It's a little par 2. You know, they have it all lit up at night so you can play at night. But I mean, we played at least 4 rounds on the 2 big courses that they have out there in Fredericksburg. So that's the Block House. It's a great course.
Sounds like a great time.
Yeah, it was a good time, but I tell you what, I was about dead by the end. Doing that yesterday, just after 36, I couldn't raise my arm. Like I said, I was bending over and having to like almost sling my right arm.
Yikes.
And I think that is because, and not blaming Simon, of course, but just trying to change. I don't know. I feel like as a medic, you know, just the act of me trying to change something and then doing it so much and trying to put, you know, so much power into it. And I know if Simon was sitting here talking to us, it's not about power, it's about technique. Well, yeah. You know, I mean, I was trying to chuck some putters really far. So anyway, yeah.
I think you can blame Simon. I think that's okay.
We need to have him on the show. There was an episode, the Disc Golf podcast, Disc Golf Show. One time they had Avery Jenkins on, and I have this linked up on my website. But anyways, they started talking about my book, Zen and the Art of Disc Golf, and Avery chimed in. He was like, yeah, I've heard of that book. And he goes, actually, Simon sent me a text, an image of him reading it in a German airport. And I was like, that is cool.
That's super cool. You need that picture.
Yeah, I wish I did have that picture. So, yeah, that's how you know you made it big. One pro in Germany, texting another pro, you know, world. I mean, these guys are world class. So anyway,
oh, yeah.
No, I don't really think I've made it big. I'm just saying. So yeah, I've played a whole bunch of holes, a whole bunch of rounds since the last time we talked. Let me ask you, Tim, you're on 2 podcasts. You've got a blog. You've got a decent, good size web presence, and people know who you are. Have you ever been recognized out on the course by somebody you didn't know personally?
I have, and the weird thing is, it's not because they knew what I looked like. It's because they knew what I sounded like. When I went to Emporia, especially, I would be standing in random places, ordering at a restaurant, at a bar, standing in a store, talking to somebody else on the course, and people would come up to me and they'd go, "Hey, are you that Mind Body Disc guy?"
That's awesome.
I go, yeah. So it was really cool that people recognize the voice, because I don't really have any pictures up anywhere. I don't know that a whole lot of people would know what I look like. I don't want to break my website by putting my ugly mug up there. But yeah, people recognize the voice, which is really, really kind of weird. And as you know from listening to yourself on the podcast, nobody likes the sound of their own voice.
Yeah.
So it's even more weird when people are like, "Oh no, it's a great voice for the podcast. I love it. I wish you did your own podcast. I'd definitely listen to it." And I'm like, I don't know that I could listen to myself talk that much.
But you have the most beautiful voice on this podcast. Let's be honest. And both your voice and my voice, I think, are very. You can tell them for very different reasons. I actually had the same thing. I totally forgot about that back about a year ago when Zach was here. We were out playing the Bayville disc golf course, and of course we were yelling, talking trash at each other at one of the baskets. And this guy comes over from the other tee and he goes, "Are you Pat and Zach?"
That's awesome.
And of course, we probably only had like 3 or 4 shows out at the time. But anyway, yeah. So the other day I was out at, again, Newport News Disc Golf Course, which I'm going to actually talk about a little bit later. We're going to do some course reviews, which I came up with that idea this past week, and I was like, well, how come we never review courses? We need to start doing that. So yeah, I'm going to talk about Newport News a little bit later, but I was out there with a couple buddies of mine. We had just finished our first 9 holes, and I was going back to the Machine Gun Gray Prius. That's a manly Prius for those of you listening. To go I don't remember what I was doing, going to grab something out of the car. And I walked by the practice basket, and this guy, he goes, "Are you Pat McCormick?" And I said, "Yes, I am." I reached out to shake his hand, and he says, "Oh man, I'm a big fan of the book and everything." And he says, "Actually, we've emailed back and forth a couple times." And he started telling me about his emails, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I definitely remember you." So big shout out to Talon Strum, who I met out at the Newport News disc golf course. Hey, I invited him to play the back 9 with us. Had a blast, and he had nothing but nice things to say about you, Tim. Which is he was like, "Hey, one of the best things you've done on the podcast is bring Tim." So he loves.
Oh, that's
you.
Awesome.
Yeah, he loves you on here, and he also mentioned the Disc Golf Answer Man, loving you on that show too. So I just wanted to let you know that people are listening out there.
Well, that's pretty cool to know. So we've got at least one fan.
One fan. So I'll probably actually play a couple more or play more rounds with Talon. I got his information, and it's funny, and I asked him, "How did you know it was me?" Because at that time I wasn't talking. The time with Zach, at that point, it was because we were yelling back and forth, and he recognized our voice. Which, how strange is that, to just assume that somebody is somebody else by the recognition of their voice? That's just
for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so you have to be really confident that is who you think it is. But so anyway, yeah. So occasionally I do run into people on the course and meet them, but I usually kind of, just like you, kind of try to stay in the shadows. I don't really advertise much about when I'm going out to play and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I got to do that. That brings up something. When I went on my trip to Emporia, I played with a bunch of different folks who listen to the podcast and read the blog and whatnot. And
awesome.
And I played some really cool folks out in Kansas City and Des Moines and one of the best time. And I want to talk about one of the Kansas City courses today on the course review. But when I was in Des Moines, the 515 Disc Golf Club, boy, a whole bunch of those guys showed up, and we played doubles that day, and it really was one of the highlights of my trip. So a big shout out to the club out in Des Moines. I want to really appreciate those guys showing me around out there. We played a course, I think it was called Walnut Ridge, which was just an amazing property. Had a really great time, and special thanks to my partner, because he didn't miss a putt. Literally, I didn't, for 18 holes, I didn't putt once. He made every single putt. And I'm sitting there just sweating. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I need you for my partner every time we play doubles. But that was a great time. So yeah, getting to play with the folks who listen and getting to play with the people out there. It's really one of the cool things. Meeting new people on the disc golf course is one of my favorite things about the sport.
Yeah, it really is. And here's the funny thing. I don't know if it's the same way for you, but it probably is. You meet somebody on the course who knows what you do in the disc golf world, with your blog and with all the podcasts and things that you do, and then you meet them and they're familiar with it and they're like, oh my God, now I've got to perform.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, talk about pressure. I mean, I don't know that anybody else was thinking that, but I'm like, oh, geez, I write about disc golf all the time. I talk about it all the time. Now I actually have to play well in front of people. Yes. And
the funny thing is they feel the same pressure too. And a lot of times when I do meet people out on the course and I invite them to play, they'll miss a putt and they'll be like, I never miss putts. Like, I'm just relax. It's okay.
I always miss putts.
I am not a pro. I am definitely not a pro.
I tell people all the time, I'm much better at writing about disc golf than playing it. So
That's awesome. So I know you had some things you wanted to go over, Tim. So why don't we go ahead and head that up?
Yeah, just there's a couple of things that I want to a couple more, one more shout out and kind of a request out there. But we just finished up the St. Jude tournament, and for the first year, I participated as a fundraising team, and the fundraising, I believe, it still goes through the end of June. So if you haven't donated, we'd really appreciate it. Head over to the Mind Body Disc fundraising page. But I did put in my match, and I raised the match to 50 cents on the dollar instead of a quarter on the dollar like I was going to.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
And we ended up raising a total of $855. So
wow, that's awesome, man.
I was super pumped about that. And I just kind of wanted to give, recognition to all the folks who donated, because I really appreciate it. And, it's something that one of the things that I pointed out in one of the posts that I made is, a lot of the people that raised a whole lot more money than we did, they were giving out discs and they were giving out T-shirts and, so if you gave them $30, you got a disc. So the thing that I really liked about the folks that donated on the Mind Body Disc team is because I wasn't giving anything out, these folks donated just for the sake of donating.
Sure.
There wasn't anything in it for them. There wasn't a reward. It was just out of their own generosity. So for these people, thank you so much. Nathan Meese, Dave T, somebody called Zen Disc Golf, Overstable Studios, Kelly and Christina Rose, Jack Sprague, Paul Wagner, Philip Voistock, Randy B, Jared Wiglish, Lynn's Gear, and CN Brian 1312. Thank you all so much. I really, really appreciate it.
That's great. So that's how you say it. Do you say Wiglish?
That's how I say it. That's as far as my expertise on that name is going to end.
He's been following us for a long time, and I see his name all the time. Sure. That's the other thing. I met that guy out at Newport News. She was like, look, check out, I got the mini. I'm like, cool. I mean, he goes, I got the bag tag number 78. I was like, hide my bag tag. And I said, I don't have a bag tag. Awesome. So I'm rocking the number 1 out of the corner.
Yeah, no kidding, right? You put that in like a big glass enclosure. Be like, I'm sorry, it's all locked up. I can't get to it. I don't have it.
He said, I would never take that from you. And inside I'm going, please don't take that from me. But, ethically I will. I'll take the 78 if you beat me.
Yeah.
Which is very likely. Very likely.
Actually, you know what? I had one more thing. Speaking of folks who participate and donate and play and all that, over the last month, I've opened up the blog to guest posts. And, I know that there are a lot of you out there who have something to say and have some valuable things to add to the disc golf community. And at the same time, I can tell you from experience, and I know, Pat, you'll agree, there's a reason why so many disc golf blogs and podcasts come and then they go. It is super hard to, A, come up with enough stuff to constantly have things to talk about, and B, to have the time put aside to actually do that stuff. So
Right.
I know there's a lot of folks out there with really good things to say that would be really valuable to people, but they just don't want to, they don't have the time or the inclination to start a blog or to create a big thing, but they have
Right.
one or two solid things to share. And, definitely head on over to my blog. I've got a guest posting guideline page. It's in the menu. We'll put a link in the show notes. But if you want to submit a guest post, I'm definitely taking the submissions and kind of looking for things to add to the blog. So would love to hear from some of you. If you've got that idea burning in you of something you got to get off your chest about disc golf, as long as it's positive and, constructive and helpful, I'd love to take a look at it for the blog.
Right on. And the other part of that is you're already established. So
here's, to give you an idea of who you're writing for, because we do want people who can't have a ton of grammar and spelling mistakes and things like that. We do need something that comes across well, because you're going to be in front of, on any given month, between 10 and 20,000 people.
Exactly. So so if you start, if you want to start your own blog, by all means, start your own blog.
Please do.
But it took you time to develop that big of an audience, and also and I don't know, I guess that's included in the numbers, but any blog post that you post automatically goes to the almost 18,000 people that I have on Facebook, plus however many you got on Facebook, and then they're sharing them out.
That. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, both Tim and Chris's blog, which Chris, we're sad couldn't make it with us today, but either if both of those blogs, as soon as they post their post, they hit the Zen Disc Golf Facebook as well. So that hits a lot of people as well.
Yeah, and those guys were actually my first guest post, was the DG Puttheads. It was really cool. Right
on. They did the putter post, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good post. So you want to do some questions here, Tim?
Let's do it.
All right. So let's see. The first one I wanted to bring up, just about every day on Facebook, I try to write a question down, although I'm running out of ideas. So Tim, you need to help
No,
a
I know
brother
the
out
feeling.
here.
I do questions once a week, and I'm running out of questions.
So this past month, I asked this question: how long do you search for a lost disc? Tim, how long do you search for a lost disc?
Oh, it depends on which disc. So the last disc I lost, I had this perfectly broken in Moonshine Trespass that I had spin dyed. It was one of my favorite spin dyes, and I lost it at a course up in Wisconsin, and I think I looked for 3 hours.
Wow.
I really was so upset. I didn't finish my round. But outside of that disc, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. Okay.
So do you still spin dye discs?
I do, not as much as I used to, but I do if I have a disc that I like, or if I'm feeling creative for the day, or every once in a while somebody will ask me to make one for them. And I used to do them for the prizes for my Instagram contest, which I've changed the prize since then. But every once in a while. So
what does the process look like for that?
So you take a record player.
Okay.
You put the disc on the record player.
Do you have to cut a hole in the disc?
No, not at all. I have a little, I have well, as long as you use 72s, you're good.
Okay.
So 45s, you have to put a hole in the disc.
Just punch it out.
You got it. So you put it on the record player, you turn it on, make sure that it's centered, which is actually one of the hardest parts of the process.
Yeah.
And then you take the dye, and there's two types of dye. Mm-hmm. If you like there's a color chartreuse, which is like this really bright neon yellow. You want to use something called worm dye, WORM. It's for fishing lures.
Okay.
For everything else, it's for polyester. Why can't I think of the name of it? If you Google it, or we'll put it in the show notes. But you mix that up and take a paintbrush, and then you don't have to use a ton of dye. You put a little bit on the paintbrush, shake it off, and then put it down on the disc and let the disc spin under the brush.
Oh, that's cool.
Just kind of get creative, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I've never gotten into doing any of that because I just know I'm probably going to lose the disc. Just
one of the reasons I stopped is there's so many incredible dye jobs out there now. There's a couple people I follow on Instagram that man, they're just amazing. And I look at them and I'm like, okay, now I feel horrible. I'm never going to do it again.
Right. You know what? I love my KC Pro AVRs. I'd love to do some like cool stamps on them, but I never have gotten around to do it. I know I'm not going to lose a putter. I say that. I probably will.
Yeah. You're just guaranteed on your next round you're losing a putter. So if you were to lose one of those putters, how long would you look for it?
It's going to depend on whether or not I'm playing with other people, because I've been out there with people before who like some of us who have a no disc left behind policy, and I get that. But at a certain point, all right, so in the past, I've played with people who have lost a disc, and okay, I need to be home by like 2:00. Mm-hmm. This is hole number 3, and we've been searching for like an hour and a half. At some point, you just got to call it a loss on that DX AVR.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
feel for the person, and you know they're going to go back later and look, but you got to call time.
Yeah, because I'd really want to, and I know it doesn't sound very sympathetic. Maybe it does. I don't know, but I help the person, and it's actually in the PDGA rule book and tournaments that if a disc is lost, you have to help them look. Mm-hmm. What's the time frame on that?
3 minutes.
So you just have to help them look for 3 minutes?
Yep. From the time the whole group starts to look, then 3 minutes is the limit for looking.
Okay, so I'm out with somebody, and they lose a disc, and I'm willing to look like 15, 20 minutes. But when it starts getting beyond that, come on, I just want to play. I know it sounds selfish, but I took the morning off to play, or your window's very, and then you've got the people who, as it progresses, they just get angrier and angrier and angrier that they can't find it. Just cut the loss.
Yeah, it is. It's just a disc. I would say too, we mentioned this before, that one of the best habits you can develop as a disc golfer is please, for the love of all that is good in disc golf, watch where you threw your disc. Amen. There's nothing worse than helping that person in a half hour and going, no, where, maybe go back to the tee and watch where, point out where it went in. Well, I wasn't really paying attention. Really?
Yeah. I play with a lot of people, and it's usually the same people. I know we're going on a little rant here, but it is usually the same people who, as soon as they let go of that disc, they feel like it's going to be a bad lie, and they stop watching where it goes. Well, you're just kind of putting it on everybody else to watch where your disc goes. At that point, they're like, "Now, where did I land?" I've
got actually kind of a funny story about that. I was playing in a tournament last year. I play in a tournament every year called the Pandemic, and it's up at a park called Dredska, and they turn a 27-hole course into an 18-hole safari course. It's an awesome tournament.
Cool.
Put on by the guys over at Panda Disc Golf. Just a great tournament. And so I was throwing on a hole, and I threw that same trespass. It just really wanted to get lost. And I threw it, and it hit the bushes on the left side of the fairway. And we looked, and we didn't find it, and we just couldn't find it. So we had to call time. I had to rethrow. So I went back after the round thinking there's no way it's still going to be there. It wasn't on the lost and found table. So I go back, and I go to the tee, and I go, okay. And I imagine the shot, and I'm like, okay, where did it go into the bushes? And I look, and I'm like, okay, that's where I'm going to start. And I walk right up, and exactly where I'm looking, at eye level, it's sitting in the bush. Just exact. So, it's a great example of just pay attention to where it went in, because that's probably where it is. Yeah.
And I got to say, over the years, I've gotten to where I cut a disc loose a lot easier than I used to, just for the sake of, in the beginning, I was buying all my discs, and as time's moved on, I get sent a lot of discs, and I don't know if this is the best mentality, but at some point I'm just like, let somebody else have it.
That's another great point too, is that's actually one of the reasons why I stopped dyeing my discs, and I stopped buying like fancy stamps and Dimaxes and things like that, because if it's just the plain disc, I'm not really attached to it. It's that disc that's the special color or the special stamp or the sentimental value. As soon as you get attached to it, that's when karma's going to go, I'm going to show you a lesson about attachment. So I've just started playing with just super plain discs. In fact, I like to wipe the stamps completely on a lot of them. So just a plain old piece of plastic.
That's cool. How do you wipe them? Just alcohol and...
No, the best thing is there's this stuff, it's probably caustic and causes cancer.
Great.
But it gets the stamp off the disc, lickety split. It's you go to your local, your Target or Walmart or something, it's called brake parts cleaner. Okay. And I've tried acetone. I have that, but acetone takes a little bit of work and scrubbing and kind of mars the top of the disc. Brake parts cleaner, you spray it on and the stamp is gone. You got to wipe it off right away. Or it will eat into the plastic. Oh, wow. But it's instant. It takes zero effort to remove the stamp with this stuff.
Okay, so maybe if I do go ahead and try to stamp some of my my AVRs, I might try that method. That's cool. So on the Facebook, some other people replied, and Justin Minnick says there's been a disc stuck at the top of a tree at our local course. It's been about 50 feet up, and everyone can see it, and no one can hit it. Sometimes finding it isn't enough. So that brings me back. I did want to mention that, that attachment thing, that there's something very zen in that. And like I said, after a certain point, I'll look for 5-10 minutes for a disc, and I just dropped the attachment. Now, this past week, remember on the last podcast, we were talking about the Vibram track, which Steve Dodge is no longer making. And so right after that podcast, I did get a couple tracks in the mail. Already lost one within 24 hours. But the people I play with, I'll throw a disc in the woods and I'll search for it for like 10 minutes. And then I'm like, nah, cutting my losses. They get more annoyed than I do than the fact that I'm like, let's move on. Yeah. I'm like, no, it's all good. If somebody finds it and they call me, great. If not, if they keep it, whatever, For sure. So, and yesterday out at the course, my buddy, he had found some kind of disc. I don't remember what it was. But he had been playing with it for a year. It didn't have a name on it, and he didn't turn it into the Lost and Found there at the course. And almost every time we play, he would lose that disc. So remember how you were talking about disc karma and how that disc just wanted to be lost? Yep. So finally, like 2 rounds ago, he threw that disc, lost permanently. So
that's funny.
So here's a good one that kind of relates to that. What is the acceptable time to wait when you find a disc and the person doesn't answer texts or calls before you consider it abandoned and yours?
You know what? You sent me that question yesterday, and I was thinking about it, and I'm not sure what they mean by that. So I took it 2 ways. If it's before you start playing with it, I don't know. I'd probably wait a few days, or 3, 4, or 5 days, or something like that before I start playing with it. Mm-hmm. But I would tell you that if that person called me 2 years later and said, hey, I saw this text you sent 2 years ago. Yeah. Can I have my disc back?
I was going through my text from 2 years ago.
Yeah. If I still had it, it's theirs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you got to be prepared to give it back whenever they text or call. But I think you probably start playing with it a few days later.
Actually, I replied to that question and I said something very similar, except for I think you put it better with the it's always theirs if their name's on the bottom.
For sure.
But I did say within 48 hours, especially if you've tried in multiple ways to contact this person and there's no lost and found at your course.
Right.
Like if there's a lost and found at your course, to me, and this goes into that whole ethics and morality which is kind of very individual for everyone. And I completely understand that. But if your actual course has a disc drop or a lost and found or something like that, and you should take advantage of it. I mean, don't throw it, just drop it in the disc drop. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Now, if there is nothing like that at that course, and you've tried multiple ways to contact that person, which is what the question stated, they tried texting and calling, and they got no response. I'd say, like you said, within 48 hours, you can start throwing it. But like you said, if they go back in their 2-year-old texts and they want it back, it's theirs. So that's exactly what I replied. All right. Let's see what else I got. I got another question here that is not related to lost discs, which seems to be the theme of the day. This one was sent to me a while back, and I sent my reply, and it was long-winded, but I wanted to hear what you had to say because we talk about this a lot. I am a forehand player, have been for several years, and it treats me very well. So well, in fact, that I have totally dismissed the fact that I need a backhand game at all until recently. I am now trying to implement a backhand drive and upshot into daily rounds, but I'm having a really hard time finding a disc that's right for me. The problems I'm running into is that when I'm throwing too hard, I'm turning the disc over and off into oblivion, or right into the ground, or too soft and the disc immediately going into a hyzer shortly off the tee. My question is, do you know of any discs I should be looking at? Something with a low speed, but stable or to slightly unstable, perhaps? Any input would be greatly appreciated. What do you got, Tim?
Well, I'm going to go back. It's probably not going to be the answer this person was looking for, but it's the archer, not the arrow.
Right.
I don't know that, I get these questions a lot. I'm sure you do too. And people are always looking for that magic disc that solves their problem. And the solution doesn't lie in the disc. The solution lies in fixing your form.
Right.
I would say that if you're a forehand player, that you've got discs that shouldn't turn and burn.
Right.
If you're playing forehand. So you should be able to take those same discs backhand. And if those same discs are burning for you backhand and they're turning over, then that's a form issue. That's not a disc issue. So I would go back to my my old standby that I get guff for all the time, but got to get a stable putter and learn to throw that putter.
Sure.
That's the best way to learn the proper form for the backhand, and start 50 feet out from the basket and then go to 60 feet out and go to 70 feet out and work your way out to 200, 250 feet out until you're throwing that putter, nice and flat and straight, and that'll teach you what you need to about your form. I would also recommend videotaping yourself. Mm-hmm. You're probably standing up on the throw and coming over the top. So you're probably, if you look at it, you'll see based on your throw exactly why the disc is turning right, because you're throwing it right.
Right. And I didn't have any other information in this question in regards to, what the turn rating on some of these discs are, or what the weight of the discs are, because all that's going to matter too. I mean, if you're throwing a 145 and you're wondering why you're, gram disc, and you're wondering why you're turning it over, it could be the weight of the disc too as well.
For sure. Now that said, to answer his question, because I always hate when I ask somebody a question, they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to answer your question. I'm going to do this other thing." So to actually answer his question, I would say that a great low-speed disc to learn with is the Leopard.
Sure.
Go pick up a Leopard, and that's a great teaching disc. You can get on them quite a bit before they turn over. They do go relatively straight. It's a nice controllable disc. It's a great disc to fill the slot you're asking to fill. So if you're looking to go out and buy a new disc to try, a Leopard is a great choice. And
easy to find.
Yes.
And just about any plastic too. So
you got it.
Yeah. I love Leopards and the Gazelle as well, which is right. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much like one number off.
For sure.
I don't remember which one, but it's like one number off. Okay. Well, awesome, Tim. So let's do some reviews today. We're switching things up a little bit different. We didn't have a guest today, so we wanted to give you as much content as possible. So we decided to do some questions and some reviews. And I asked Tim to come up with, as we mentioned earlier, a course review, which is something we're going to start throwing into all of our podcasts, or at least a lot of them. I asked him to do a disc review and another disc golf related item. And of course I will do the same. So let's do your course review there, Tim.
Cool. So when I took my trip to Emporia, I stopped, as I mentioned, in Des Moines on the way out, and I stopped in Kansas City on the way back. Des Moines was awesome. Emporia was awesome. Kansas City made me want to move there as a disc golfer.
Awesome.
It was an amazing disc golf town. So it's hard to pick which course that I played there to review. We played Blue Valley, which was an amazing it's the longest course by far I've ever played. Played Waterworks, which is a world famous course and probably top one or two courses I've ever played. But I would tell you the most fun I had on the entire trip was a course called Rosedale Down Under. And it's a little short course, and there's Rosedale up top and there's Rosedale down under. It's a big park, and Rosedale up top is a regular park-style disc golf course. It goes around the outside of the park. In the middle of the park, there is a big, huge depression. It's a big area, and it's all wooded, big, craggy ravines and cliffs and elevation and super tight woods. And it's a short little course. You can play it with, I could probably go out there with a couple of mids and a couple of putters and not lack a single shot. There are a couple of holes where you might want a real straight fairway driver. Mm-hmm. But it was super, super tight. There were drop-offs on the edges of most of the fairways. There were death putts. There was uphill. There was downhill. There was throwing over big canyon-style ravines. There was water. There was trees.
Oh, wow.
There was blind shots. I mean, it was a super, super fun course. And I would tell you that if you lived in Kansas City and you played that course on a regular basis, that course would make you a lot better at disc golf.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, you needed to know how to land your disc flat. You needed to know how to throw and have it finish straight. You needed to know how to throw a turnover shot. You needed a little forehand flick. I mean, you needed the entire arsenal of shots to play this course, and it punished you if you didn't throw well. Right. So it was just so much fun. And I've had a bunch of people, I posted pictures on Instagram, and I've had, it seems like a mixed review. People either love this course or they absolutely hate it. And I can understand hating it. But I would say that if you live in that area and you don't play it because you don't like how tight it is, that's exactly why you do need to go play it. It was just, I found myself wishing that we had a course just like this at home. And like I said, I left Kansas City. I don't know if there's any work in Kansas City, but between the food that I had there and the disc golf that I played there, it is I would call it a mecca of disc golf for sure.
Nice. So it just really forces you, it sounds like, to be your finesse shots and to be very deliberate in where you land that disc. And that's really interesting that you bring that up. I've been watching a whole lot of the pro tournaments and stuff on YouTube. And that's one thing that you when you start watching that, you start realizing what the difference is in these pro tournaments and when you just go out and play around with your buddies is the out of bounds. A lot of times they are insane for these guys to have to land these discs exactly where they need to land them. And that's skill I don't think I think that most of us work on, making putts, making long putts, being consistent, and that's great. And then, making drives, making long drives, and our driving distance, and that's great. But these pros, a lot of times in these tournaments, they have that whole other element that sometimes we are never forced to work on, which is landing that disc in that circle,
not just that, landing it flat.
Yeah. So that it doesn't roll away or skid away and bringing elevation into it and wind and some of the stuff these guys do out there is just incredible. How they need to land it on a dime.
Yeah, watching those rounds out at De La Viega for the Masters Cup if you want to watch some quality disc golf and see what we're talking about, go watch the not the final round because they played that on a ball golf course, but watch the first couple of rounds of the Masters Cup, and you'll see what we're talking about because you have to play this course where you not only have to be tight and technical, but you can't hyzer. If you hyzer, your disc skips off into oblivion. So it has to come down flat. You have to play the slide and all of the different factors these pros are taking into consideration when they play these courses is just amazing. And
a lot of times when they have to land it flat, we're not talking about just on flat land. We're talking about, if it's a hill, they still have to land it flat on that hill. So, at like a 30-degree angle, it's got to land boom, flat on the hill. So it's interesting to watch them and how they play the terrain. At these places.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about one of my home courses. I've got multiple. I'm lucky enough to have multiple home courses, but the course I play most often, the one I've mentioned here a couple times in the podcast already, is the Newport News Disc Golf Course. And obviously it's in Newport News, Virginia, and I end up playing that a lot in the mornings, a lot on weekdays after I get off work with a lot. I've introduced a lot of the guys I work with in the fire department to disc golf. It's one of my prides that I've been able to do that, and I really could almost form like a team of just firemen at this point. So we like to get out there. It's a beautiful course. It's worth driving to. It's a course that's good for the new player, but it's as challenging as you want to make it. There's different sets of tee pads. I think there's 3 tee pads, but I think there's even more than that. That's just how many concrete tee pads they have on each hole. I think there's other ones. I think I've been seeing some junior tees as well popping up on the course. So, we're talking maybe like 75 to 100 feet away from some of the baskets, which I think is really cool. Newport News is pretty tight and wooded on the front nine, and then nice and wide open, but still technical on the back nine. The course length, according to Disc Golf Review, is 5,413 feet. It has an average par of about 54. I love this course. It's a beautiful course. It's definitely worth driving to. There's a campground nearby. It is a pay-to-play course, but it's only $3, and it's like $25 for a year pass. I usually buy every course I go to that's within like 100-mile radius. I usually buy a year pass, so I'll never have to worry about going in again and buying tickets. So yeah, definitely recommend it if you live within 100 miles, or even if you want to come visit this area. That is one of the courses that you definitely want to see. It's about 20 minutes from our two of the larger, bigger courses, which would be like your A-tier courses, New Quarter Park and Waller Mill. I have not played Waller Mill yet. I've been hearing a lot of good things. I've been playing New Quarter more often. That is a long course. But yeah, Newport News is just a fun course to come and play. So definitely it's worth traveling into the what we call the Colonial Triangle, which is Williamsburg, Yorktown, and Jamestown. So if you travel to this area, there's all kinds of stuff to do. If you're into history and battlefields and all that, we've got that. But we also have theme parks and water parks, and you've got the beach down here. You got all this stuff, but you've also got some great disc golf in this area. Newport News Disc Golf Course. So, Tim, what disc did you want to review today?
I want to talk about the Latitude 64 Vision today. Cool. And after I picked this disc, I look back and I think it actually might be discontinued, but it's still available on a bunch of sites. It's a lot like the Leopard we just talked about. So It's a nice, controllable fairway driver. Have you ever gone through your stack of discs and then that you have sitting in your garage or your closet, and you come across a disc and you're like, why did they ever take that out of my bag?
Right, yeah.
That's this disc for me. I was going through my garage the other day, and I don't know why I think it just came out just because I've been trying to limit the number of discs, and it just was a victim of that. But I really want to try and get it back in my bag because it's something that I used to throw a lot. It's just a nice, straight, controllable fairway driver. You can get it to turn over. You can get it to hyzer. You can get it to go straight. It's got some distance and some glide if you need it to. It's a great all-purpose driver.
Right on. I wanted to bring something up. I played in Salisbury, Maryland this past week. We were just traveling through, actually, on our way up to New York, and I usually ask the wife if she'll let me play a little disc golf along the way. So we showed up in Salisbury, Maryland, and I played Shoemaker Park. And in Shoemaker Park, there is on hole number 3, you throw off a dock. So you go out actually into the middle of this pond, and you actually throw from the dock. If you overstep, if you foot fault, you're getting wet. So the basket is on land to the left. Wind was about 12 miles an hour, okay? So I'm thinking, all right, well, I'm just going to grab... Oh, in your face, okay? Headwind.
Oh, nice.
At about 12 miles an hour. So I'm thinking back to prior episodes. I'm like, all right, what would Tim do? All right, what would Tim do? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to disc up on this because into the wind, disc up, right?
Sure.
So I grabbed the disc I had with like the most, higher speed rating that I felt like would be good, and the most fade to just ensure that if I grip lock, that it would still kind of fade off to the left and still hit land.
Okay.
So I grabbed a King, a West Side King. Are you familiar with that one?
I am, yeah.
All right. Mistake. Because you also need to think about how much glide the disc has, not just the fade. Yeah. I think that disc has a 5 glide.
Right.
So what happened was, even though the fade was jacked up to, it was a fade 4, and I tried to keep it along the line of the shore, that disc went about, 250 feet and looked like it got stuck in the air. It was just, you ever see a bird that's just in the, like the wind's blowing and they just have their wings out and they're just still, and you're like, how are they even, that was the king just standing there over the water. I think maybe 15 minutes passed before the disc actually came down. So it was actually just hanging over the water. I said, oh, you're taunting me now. You're taunting me. You know what? That disc didn't fade at all. It was like, oh, I'm floating. I'm floating. I'm floating. I'm dead. Splash.
Nice. Another one that wanted to get lost.
Yes, exactly. In fact, that was the one I sent you some photos of that park.
Oh, that's right. You did. Yeah.
Yeah. Of me getting a little wet, going out there swimming. Also another bad idea. The day before I was walking in my garage and, I stepped on something. I was barefoot and I felt a little pop in my foot and I was like, oh, ow. Okay. But it didn't hurt, okay? So then I walk back into the house and I'm doing some stuff on the computer and I'm sitting cross-legged and then I look down and I notice that I've got blood all over my hands. That's this gory story for the Zen Disc Golf podcast. So I wipe the blood off my hands and then I look and I see I've got bloody footsteps all the way in from the garage. No. I had it didn't cause me any pain, but I had stepped on glass in my garage.
Oh, wow.
The day before we were going out of town. And so the reason I'm telling you about this is because you remember that no disc left behind policy.
Yeah.
I walked up to where the disc was, and it's funny because my wife was like, I want to take some pictures of you on the dock. I have a lost disc. Disc down.
Priorities, please.
Yeah, you can. I will walk back on the dock, and you could take some more photos of me. So, anyways, I go where my disc is. I was like, I can see it from here. Nice. I think it's a bright lime green. Remember the whole colorblind thing? Lime green, yellow disc. I can see it. So I took my shoes off, took my socks off, and I said, I'm going to it. And I walked out to it, and I grabbed it. And she's taking photos of me, and I'm like, oh yeah, open wound on my foot. Probably a bad idea. Luckily, nothing ever came about it. You know, I got out and I washed the wound out, but I'm like, I'm going up to New York City like the day after. And if you've ever been to New York, you're doing 20,000 steps. Easy. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to have an infection on the bottom of my foot.
Oh yeah, bad idea.
Oh, that was a tangent. But anyway, so I just wanted to mention that after I pulled the king out of the water, I got to thinking, you know what? I feel like I did the right thing by upping the speed and I had the fade the way I wanted it to be, but you also got to think about that glide because it just stuck and then just died.
So I have a question. If you foot fault off the dock and end up in the lake, do you also still get a stroke on top of it, like insult to injury? That's
a good question.
Or is the punishment just you got to play the rest of the round soaking wet and embarrassed?
Oh man, you need to be filmed if that happens. It has to be on film.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I did a standstill there because I just knew that would be my luck. Okay, so I wanted to review a newer disc in my bag. Actually, after talking to Steve Dodge on the last episode, I ordered a whole bunch of Vibram discs.
Oh, cool.
So I ordered an Ibex, which is a mid-range disc for Vibram, and so far I'm really loving it. It's got a speed 5, glide 4, turn neg 1, fade 1, so pretty straight disc with a lot of glide. Doesn't take a lot of arm. I think I have like a 168 grams, so I'm able to just kind of throw a standstill, throw it nice and flat, and it goes. I can easily put it out there, just about 300 feet, which is about what it's kind of rated for by the inbounds flight ratings. Just super nice disc, feels good in the hand, just like all the Vibrams do to me. Like I said, I'm a big fan of that track. I have added an arch to my bag, which I believe what Steve was saying that has kind of replaced the track. I do really like that arch. But the Ibex is maybe like one step down from that arch, and just real nice, easy disc to throw. Probably a good starter disc if you know you're trying to. I want to start playing, but I want to start with Vibrams. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I do. I really like the Ibex. It's becoming one of my more common mid-range discs. Nice.
What color? I love the color mixes of the Vibram disc. What color did you get?
It's like the granite look. Where it's just like speckled. It's white, but it's kind of speckled.
Okay.
Yeah, and they do have the best looking discs. Actually, Chris sent me his track because he wasn't using it, and it looks like lemon meringue pie.
You posted a picture that it looks exactly like the top of a lemon meringue pie.
Beautiful disc, beautiful disc. Thank you so much for sending that to me, Chris. So, another disc golf related item.
All right, so I've got a mouthful here, but there's a bunch of different versions of it. The Ergodyne Chillets Evaporative Cooling Towel. That's just the one. That's just the one that I have. I think it's $8 on Amazon. If you type in cooling towel, we'll post we'll post a link on the show notes. There's these, I don't know, they're new to me. Apparently they're not new, but there's some kind of, a lot of them describe them as a quote unquote space age polymer material. It's a towel, but it's about 30 inches long, about 6 or 8 inches wide. And what you do is you soak these towels and then you just kind of give them a snap and you put them on your neck or wherever you want. And these suckers get cold and they stay cold for most of the day, like a lot cooler than just a normal wet towel would be. And so, tomorrow here in our area, it's supposed to be 100 degrees tomorrow. Ooh. So on days like that, when you're playing, to have this towel and you just kind of put it over your neck as you're playing, I got to tell you, it's like having your own personal air conditioner. So
nice.
For $7 or $8, if you play in an area where it gets hot like that, you owe it to yourself to get a couple of these things. They're reusable. They don't wear out. I wouldn't clean your disc with it, but, you can put it on your head. The cool thing is this particular company, they make hat liners that go under your hat. They make bandanas. They make a whole bunch of different formats. So you can have one wrapped around your head and one around your neck. And depending on, I think we've talked before that I get kind of hot and sweaty in the summertime. So this really helps with that. So it's one of those cool things that makes your round a whole lot more enjoyable in the summer.
Right on. I have a buddy that I play with that swears by those as well, and he always wraps it around his neck and kind of shoves it in his shirt. He swears by those as well. All right, I'm going to do so. A couple weeks ago, I ended up at the REI, which is they just put one in Virginia Beach. I'd never been in one. I think you've mentioned them before.
No, it's one of my favorite stores in the world.
It's a pretty awesome store. And I didn't go in with the intention of spending any money, but
that's how they get you.
Yeah, they were having a Keen sale. So all their Keen shoes were 20% off. I tried on some Montforts, I believe is how it's pronounced. I know Keen makes a specific disc golf shoe. Is it called the Marshall? Is that what it is? Do you know?
It is.
Okay, so they didn't have Marshalls or whatever, but I tried on some Montforts. The first thing that struck me is I have a hard time finding shoes in general. Number one, it's hard to find ones that I think that look good and that also fit and are very comfortable. And when I say look good, I don't want all this flashy stuff all over them. Utilitarian. That's how I am with shoes. And then they need to be really comfortable. And then usually I'll throw them on there and the arch is too high, or there's no arch, or the sole is too high, especially on shoes that are like hiking shoes, which is kind of Keen's kind of thing. A lot of times the soles will be just too thick and I just feel like I'm 3 inches taller and it just doesn't feel right. I put these Montforts on, these Keen Montforts, and immediately they were super comfortable, super light. And that's what really surprised me was how light these shoes are. It's almost like walking in sandals. They're not Keen sandals. They're actual hiking shoes. And they do have around the toe actual added protection to protect the actual shoe. So when you're doing your drives and your spin-offs on the concrete tee pads, it kind of adds that extra thing, which I'm sure the Marshalls that's when they were designing a disc golf shoe, that was kind of a priority when you're doing that spin on the ball of your foot, you know what I mean? Well, the Montforts had those as well. And so 20% off, it was definitely worth the money. And I now have shoes that I only wear for disc golf, my Keen Montforts. And I'm loving them. And I've played at least, like I said, 15 rounds in them. Oh, the other thing is I have walked through 3-inch deep water in these things and felt dry socks. Nothing,
Nice.
nothing came through. And that's a big deal when you're out on the course and you're on hole number 1 and your socks are already wet.
Oh, yeah.
As a matter of fact, I probably should have in the past. Now it's not a problem, but throw some extra dry socks in your bag if you ever have that problem. So yeah, I'm loving these. I'm loving these new Keens. Do you have shoes that you only wear for disc golf?
I do. In the summertime, I buy Asics running shoes.
Okay.
You see people online talk about, the toe doesn't hold up. The toe doesn't look. If you're going to drag your toe across cement over and over, there's not a shoe out there that's going to hold up.
Right.
So my view in the summertime is I'm going to buy $40 and $50 pairs of shoes that I found that I really like, that fit me well and are comfortable. Mm-hmm. And when I drag through the toe, I get another pair of shoes, and I'm not going to get all bent out of shape about it because I'm a toe dragger, and that's just what's going to happen. So outside of that, I'm still searching for the perfect pair of waterproof, but I'm a huge Merrell fan.
Okay.
I like the Merrell stuff a lot, just because, like you said, I found that brand really, really fits me really, really well. So I know I can buy a size 13 Merrell, and bam, it fits.
Right.
So regardless of the kind, so I can buy them online and save a little bit of money that way. But so those are my shoes of choice. I will tell you about REI. There's a couple of things that can help you mitigate the expense of an REI addiction.
Okay.
Number one, you want to make sure you join, I think they call it a co-op.
Yes.
But it doesn't cost anything, I don't believe. But they send you a percentage of your purchase back in cash every year. So, right. Or in a gift card. So, and the cool thing is even if you forget or lose the gift card, they store it in their system. They're not one of these crazy places. They're like, sorry, you don't have the piece of paper. You can't have the discount.
Yeah.
So they send you that. They send you good coupons that way. And then the other thing is keep an eye on their message board, because about twice a year, your REI will have something called a garage sale. They have a very lenient return policy there. Mm-hmm. So people will buy a mountain bike and ride it for a day and go, I don't like it. Or they'll buy a pair of shoes and wear them for a week and go, I don't like them. So they take all of that stuff and they have an amazing sale a couple times a year. So anybody out there who's got an REI, buy them. Keep an eye out for that garage sale. It's definitely worth taking the time to go. If you need anything they carry, there's climbing gear, tents, sleeping bags, bikes, shoes, canoes, you name it. They usually have it, and it's really a good sale. They're trying to get rid of this stuff. It's not just a 10% off deal. It's a really good deal. So it's a couple of ways to spend less.
They actually have that at the store, like out front or something like that? Or
they have a section in the store, yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's not like online where they ship it to the store. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's actually at the store. So you head out there and kind of look through and man, there's, you can get shoes for 80% off. And
whoa.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's a really, really good sale.
I've always heard, and most people will agree, that REI is just really expensive. But, in walking around and looking at everything that they had to offer, the expensive stuff is the name brand.
Yeah, it's expensive everywhere.
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to think of something. Patagonia, right? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter where you go to buy that name brand item, whether it's REI or we have Dick's Sporting Goods. If you're buying Patagonia, it is the price that it is. But REI has a lot of other stuff and stuff that's just branded REI. Mm-hmm. That's a very decent price. I was very surprised. So now that we've done this commercial for REI
send us free stuff.
So awesome. So hey, let's give a book away. I haven't given a book away in a while, but I just got a new stock in here at the Zen Disc Golf headquarters here. So I'm going to give a signed book away to somebody who's left a 5-star review for the book on Amazon. And today, this book goes to Parker Sands, and it's a slightly longer review, but I think it's worth reading because it's 5 stars. If you are a disc golfer, buy this book. If you are a student of Zen practice, then buy this book. If you want to live a better life, buy this book. Patrick McCormick has written a short but deep look into playing disc golf, practicing a Zen mindset, and tapping into the potential to become the best possible you. McCormick's words are like syrup. And I like that sentence. That's not that sentence is like syrup. Yeah. They hold such thick value, and sometimes it takes a little while to digest them fully. But when those words do finally sink in, it is true enlightenment. Suddenly everything makes sense, and things that may have been a little cloudy before now seem perfectly clear. Although I'm a relatively new disc golfer, I come from a background of playing regular golf for most of my life and struggling with the mental mindset of playing at a competitive level. In fact, several years ago, I played regular golf competitively in college in Southern California, but became very frustrated, depressed, and ultimately burnt out from tireless efforts to elevate my game to the next level. I wish I would have had McCormick's book at that stage in my life. Wow, thank you. Nevertheless, I'm very glad to have this book now. I've read it cover to cover several times and always keep it close by if I feel the need to refresh before I go play or even take on the day. Reading Zen and the Art of Disc Golf has made me appreciate time, effort, skills, and enjoyment that comes from playing and participating in all the sports I play, and even my occupation as a middle school mathematics teacher. This person is brave. You have got to be. He needs to write a book about Zen and the art of middle school math teaching, because I used to be a substitute teacher, but I refuse to do middle school. Do they have middle school in Chicago, or is it?
I think they call it junior high.
Junior high, yeah. All right, so where did I leave off? Now I have renewed interest in getting absolute enjoyment I can from my work and leisure activities, challenging myself to constantly improve my game and myself and enter competitive tournaments again. Thanks, Patrick. Your book is awesome and profound. How could I not send this person a signed book?
No kidding. Awesome, profound, and syrupy all in the same review.
Syrupy. Yeah, plus they're a math teacher. Any kind of teacher in middle school. Middle school is such a tough age.
Oh, yeah.
They all need disc golf. You know,
I was an idiot in middle school.
We all were.
I'm surprised people let me live past that age.
I'm surprised any of us live past that age. We all just want to do a bunch of stupid stuff and think we know it all. So thank you, Parker Sands. Send me an email, zendiscgolf@gmail.com with your address, and I'd be super happy to send you out as a thank you a signed copy of Zen and the Art of Disc Golf, and you can take your other copy and give it to somebody on the course, or maybe give it to one of your middle school students who need it, you know? Thank you so much, Parker, for your review. Tim, did you have anything else for the show today?
I am all tapped out for the day.
Tapped out. I am too. And my caffeine buzz is starting to run out, so I think it's time that we just call it a day. So, as always, check out Tim's website, mindbodydisc.com, check out zendiscgolf.com, and follow us on all of our social media. Just throw.
I don't like when I measure my throw. It makes this sound. It goes wah wah.
Does it really?
No.
Oh. I'm sorry.